is lecture number 13. We have up until now, for close to 2 weeks now, we have been talking about the reality of interpreting the religion and implementing that religion on a very meticulous, monotonous, gradual nature. Now, we've spoken about everything in the beginning, about the establishment of this topic through the words of Allah and the Sunnah of the Ahlul Bayt. And basically what I wanted to get to was the idea of habit building. This is a month now where we should establish good habits and remove the bad ones. All the right tools, all the right scenarios, the environment is now ready for us to kind of, achieve that goal. And, while we only have a few days left in the month of Ramadan and we want to finish off strong, and I know you guys are tired, I'm tired, it's draining. It's mentally draining, spiritually draining, physically draining. We're on a very strange sleep cycle, in terms of food and water, and the sheer emotion of some of the du'as. The nights of Qadr were emotional. The majalis, of course, were emotional. So naturally, it's going to have a toll on us. But and that's okay. For us to struggle and strive like this is okay. And naturally, when we see kind of the finish line, we just want to get there. Even if you stumble across it, we just want to finish it. But nonetheless, we want to make sure that we finish off strong. So these discussions now are crucial for life after the month of Ramadan, where now, once again, Shaitan now, quote unquote, is unchained, and we go back to that pre-Ramadan life. The difference, hopefully, and we pray to Allah for this, is that while life and routine will come back to normal, we're not normal. This month has been a revolutionary one for some of us, and hopefully that revolution and that revival carries forward throughout the rest of the year. Now, we've been talking about habit building and its impact on behavior, its impact on identity. The whole premise of desire and identity and instant gratification, and how sometimes we live in a world where we want everything. Our desires are want it instantly, and Islam is a delayed system where Allah might send trailers or teasers or a little bit of an appetizer of the reward that really awaits the believer in the next world. Now, last time I spoke a little bit about the idea of desire for the past 2 nights now, and looking at the idea of certainty last night, that we will only begin to develop these habits if we are certain in what we believe in. Makes sense, right? If we have doubt, if there's shak, why should I, Asad bhai? Then of course what I'm trying to achieve inside of myself, and maybe all of you, will not happen. Tonight, what I want to speak a little bit about is the construction of a habit. Okay. And then designing our environment to succeed. Now, first of all, if you've done any sort of reading on this, the concept of habits, whether it be, The Power of Habit by, Charles Duhigg, or Atomic Habits by James Clear. And, I encourage my youth out there that, it is important that you also read some secular books and some Western authors. Knowledge, is present everywhere, and you should exhaust all options now to gain that knowledge. I'll never forget, hearing a quote by Ayatollah Khamenei, may Allah prolong his life, about the idea that he would be an avid reader of Shakespeare. And I found that to be very interesting. We think about the ulama, the marajih, the fuqaha as, fiqh and usul or fiqh and usul tafsir, but his wide range, right? His worldview expands. It's incredible how he saw the world, and maybe partly because he's able now to lead a revolution, it's because his worldview is so expansive, just like, the late great Imam Khomeini's was. He saw the world differently than those who were, alongside him in his hawza life, right beside him in terms of knowledge, but his eyes and what he saw was something completely different. So anyways, the construction of the habits, there's 4 main ingredients to a habit, okay? You have the cue, you have craving, you have the response, you have reward. Okay, these are the 4 that are the construction of a habit. Okay, and what I want to focus on today is the first initial entry into a habit, where we are cued. That cue now triggers that habit from coming into play. Okay, our brain is triggered by the cue. Okay, so for example, if every day, let's say for example, after the month of Ramadan, at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you have your coffee break. And if you were at work, let's say, those of you who are not working from home, you have scheduled breaks sometimes. From 3 to 3:15 is my afternoon break, and right at 3:00 is my coffee break. It's the one coffee I have all day. The cue to that coffee is what? 3 o'clock. The moment 3 o'clock hits, your brain's triggered. Coffee, coffee, coffee. Okay. So the brain is triggered by the cue. Once the cue hits, then of course the brain goes into habit mode. One thing I should mention to all of you here is that ultimately the cue now, which triggers the habit, is looking for the reward. Remember the cat example I gave you a couple of nights ago, those who are following me every single night. Cat example was what? And put him in a box, hit the lever, the door opens, he goes straight for the bowl of food. So the cue, meaning putting him in the box, was the cue, got him, of course, to his reward. Okay. The brain is such that it constantly analyzes our external environment. Okay. And constantly looks for ways that it could now have this reward. Okay. Now we have forces inside of us that want a reward, and that reward could be appreciation. It could be a pat on the back. It could be, inflating our ego. It could be pumping up the narcissistic inside of us, the self-love we have, self-loathing we have, self-worship we have, right? And so we look for ways outside of us to somehow get that reward. We trigger ourselves that maybe if I help this person, then they'll send me a nice thank you. They might put it on some group chat with a picture of how well I did. Maybe I might get a post, maybe a shout out, maybe a hashtag, maybe they'll tag me, whatever the case may be. And so that's why in Islam, one of the most difficult things to do is to do things with the utmost sincerity. Why is ikhlas so hard? Why is it so hard to do something faqat and faqat only and only for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, where you don't want an element of appreciation or an element of gratitude or acknowledgement from that act? No, that's hard, right? Even the things that we do to help people, some of it, there might be a small little part of us that says, okay, how will this benefit me? Okay. And those that fight that urge inside of you and do something, fi sabilillah, of course, there is a grand reward waiting for you, because there are triggers inside of us looking to see, where can I have my ego inflated? Where can I have that plaque engraved with my name on it? Where can I be called up on stage? So let's do all this to get that moment. Okay. So we're constantly analyzing. Our brain is seeing, where can I get that reward inside of us? Okay, fine. Now, let's understand a couple of things here. The cues trigger the habits, but the cues have to be visible and around us. Follow me in the beginning of this lecture. I have until 8:45. So, I'm going to go a little bit slow tonight. I'm going to build up towards something that's very, very important. Just follow me for a while, okay? Cue, craving, response, reward. The brain is triggered by the cue. The cue is hit, and all of a sudden now that triggers the habit. The habit now begins. 3 o'clock hits, boom, let's go for a coffee. Okay, those who habitually pray salat, the moment you hear your adhan clock go off, boom, you stand up, put everything away, do wudu, Allahu Akbar. Okay. But the cues have to be visible and present for us to be triggered. Okay, think about it. If you don't know it's 3 o'clock, no clock in front of you, No idea. It's namaz time. There's no adhan, nothing. Before you know it, 1:14 comes and goes. It's 1:25. It's 2:15. It's 3:30. Hi, namaz. You go and you pray namaz. The cues have to be, if we want to begin to be a habitual reader, the bookshelf can't be buried in the garage. Right? If, for example, we want to take our daily vitamins, the vitamins can't be buried in the pantry at the back. Okay. If we tell ourselves, you know what, I'm going to go out, I'm going to learn how to, let's say, for example, shoot a basketball. Again, the basketball can't be deflated and, buried in the basement. The cues have to be visible and around us. Okay. There are some people like me, I buy a bag of apples. Okay, I'm going to have apples. I'm really craving apples. I went out, I bought these beautiful apples, bag of apples, beautiful. And I put them where? In that fruit tray, where you stuff everything in there, right? You have I just close that fruit tray. It doesn't, you tuck the pear in, you tuck the grapes in, and boom, okay, close. And then what happens? You forget about it. It's buried underneath there until it's garbage there. Then it's like, oh my God, the whole bag now has gone bad. Why? Because it wasn't visible. There's a whole discussion on fridge management, right? You want to make sure that those healthy items are in line with your view, right? So when you see them, you're triggered to do what? To eat them. Or you put them in a fruit tray right in the middle of your kitchen. So you pass by every single day, grab an apple on your way, but you can't be buried. So cues have to be visible and present. Makes sense, right? It makes sense. Okay. What about this idea of, now I'm trying to establish in this entire 13 lecture series now so far, trying to establish a habitual, gradual entry into Islam. I have to be triggered constantly when it comes to Islamic values. Those triggers have to be around me, guys. They have to be visible around me. They have to be present around me. They can't be replaced with triggers towards evil. We get triggered all the time. The triggers are either towards good or towards evil. It's a matter of what we surround ourselves with. Okay? Our behavior is nothing but an offshoot of our habits. Our habits are born with our triggers and our cues. Sometimes we have control over what triggers us. So for example, when Islam talks about be careful of what you watch, nowadays there's a lot of filth on these streaming devices. And sometimes I hear, and by the way, let me tell you, even people my age, guys my age, talking about in 40s, maybe, even guys younger in the 30s, a little bit older in the 50s, you're watching these trashy shows. I'm sorry. Everyone's watching them, right? This hashtag, that hashtag, and you watch it and it's disgusting. It's, and you sit there and you convince yourself, look, I'm a 48-year-old man. I'm a 42-year-old woman, I can watch this without it affecting me. And we think for a moment that it won't affect me. And, I've said it before, literally sometimes I can tell by a person the way they walk, the way they talk, the way they use language, that they are a product of the show that they're watching. And inshallah, I'll share with you a couple of traditions that are very scary and very powerful that, the idea of surrounding ourselves with visible cues towards Islam. A lot of us want to be great. We want to be pious. Asad, I want to be the cream. I'm tired of this. I want to be ready for Imam Zamana. I want to be the best version of a servant I can be. But we surround ourselves with evil. Be it what we watch, what we listen to, or who we spend time with. Okay? So yeah, I really want to be a guy who reads the Quran every single day. And the Quran is where? In the almari on top, wrapped in a beautiful silk cloth from India. Like it's, there's that grandmother knot, my nani, marhuma, may God bless her, she had a knot. She would put things in a plastic bag, then she would knot it to the point where, like, I swear to God, like, nobody could open that knot. We referred to it as a nunno knot in my house. A nunno knot. It's like, oh my, like, what is inside of it? Like, is there diamonds in there? What's happening? It's just a bag of chips. No. Okay, I get it, but can someone come please help me open my nunno knot? We used to call it nunno growing up. Anyways. So now that's up there, right? It's real. Okay, why can't I? Well, how are you being triggered? Where are you being? Is there some cues? It's not visible. It's buried up top, up top. So we have to create now the right environment to succeed. The environment's huge. Okay? And I think we underestimate, or maybe I do, underestimate the things that I surround myself with, the sights and the sounds for sure, and the people. And the people. There are some of you who surround yourself with people who bring out the worst in you. There are some of you who have no business. You're too good for the group that you're part of. And I'm sorry, I'm not here to destroy groups. It's a topic I post about on my social media pages. I talk about, let's say, for example, in my lectures, because it continues to be a pain point for me. I'm seeing cream of the crop young guys waste that tarbiyat away, all for the sake of this groupthink mentality. It's a group, Asad, it's a brotherhood, it's a clique, it's a tribe. I can't go against the tribe. I know what I'm doing is wrong. I quiet my conscience, I quiet my soul, but I want to please the guys around me. Okay? And we have to make sure that we surround ourselves with the right cues if we want a fighting chance to create the right environment around us. Now, let's look at what the Quran talks about. First of all, Imam Ali alayhi salatu wasalam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. There is ample traditions about this idea of surrounding yourself with the right triggers. And I'll refer to friends and people as triggers. I'll use that word like 1,000 more times, okay? He says, avoid making friendship with transgressors and sinning people, sinners, because he says evil creates evil. If I can say it in our lingo today, evil triggers evil. I think sometimes we are a little bit, we're delusional. And I am sometimes. That if I'm surrounded by shaitan, surrounded by evil, surrounded by, transgression and sin, I think, oh, none of that will affect me. No, you stand outside a blacksmith, just stand outside the blacksmith and you look at your hands and they're black. Just by being around the blacksmith, your hands are black. Let's not be delusional. Let's not be naive. Let's not lie to ourselves. Evil triggers evil. When he says, Imam Ali, same hadith, different hadith, same Imam, says that, surround yourself with those people who remind you of God, Does that mean that on a Friday night we're hanging out in someone's backyard, in someone's basement, sitting and saying Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, you say Allahu Akbar, I'll say Alhamdulillah? No, I'm not saying that. There's been moments where I sat there with my friends, for hours watching the game. That's perfectly okay. What's meant by reminding of God is that when you're around him, you're triggered for God. Okay? It's not a night where you're blasting music. It's not a night where you're watching disgusting television. It's not a night where you're backbiting about this person or that person. Not a night where there's obscene language every second word. No. You're sitting around having good, wholesome fun, enjoying your brothers and sisters, right? Enjoying your friends. At the same time, maybe having a discussion. Again, because righteousness triggers righteousness. Look at what the Quran says now. Let's look at some very powerful traditions. And by the way, the battery in my mic is now right now on 1 bar. If it leaves, then the mic from my laptop will kick in, and so the sound will be a little bit different. Don't mind me, but you can still hear me. The last thing you can't do is you can't not hear me. That's for sure. I've never had somebody tell me, oh, can you speak a little bit louder, Sayyid? No, I've never had that problem. So anyways, inshallah, if it does kind of change, then you'll know why. Surah Ma'idah is where I'll start. About 6-7 verses now today. Follow me. Powerful verses. And if you have your phones with you, if you have your Qurans with you, if you're able to follow along with me, then please do. Surah Ma'idah is the 5th chapter of the Quran. Verse number 2 is a lengthy one. In there, at the last 2 lines of it, is where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a beautiful piece of advice for all of us. In a very famous way, he says, وَتَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْبِرِّ وَالتَّقْوَى. Help one another. Towards what? Towards goodness and piety. وَلَا تَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْإِثْمِ وَالْعُدْوَانِ. And do not help another in sin and aggression. Meaning what? Again, let's use our lingo. Trigger one another towards bir and taqwa, righteousness and piety. Do not trigger each other towards ithm and udwan. Ithm is sin, udwan is transgression or aggression. Okay? He's saying, like it is a village process. It takes a village. It has to be the right environment. I cannot stress this enough. All of you, my young guys out there, please take a moment tonight and examine your environment. You can't pick and choose your family. You can pick and choose definitely your environment to the best of your ability. If you have people who are toxic, if you have people who pull out the worst in you, if you have those who trigger evil, and stop and ask yourself very difficult questions. Is this worth it? I'm trying to now create this value system, Asad bhai, a holistic value system in my life, and I have to find out, is there something that I need to compromise to get to that value? Or am I compromising the value to uphold this individual or this group? Tough questions and tough decisions to be made, because the result is monumental. Now, Surah Furqan. Surah Furqan is the 25th chapter of the Quran, if I believe. 4 verses. Oh, powerful verses. We'll go slow one by one. Please follow me. Verses 26, 27, 28, 29 of Surah Furqan, the 25th chapter of the Quran. This is now where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes the zalim, the oppressor, on the brink of the hellfire. Okay? Let's start off with verse number 26, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala now talks about the kingdom, right? Al-mulku yawma'idhin haqqu lirrahman. The kingdom on that day shall rightly belong to what? Lirrahman. The lam before Rahman is known as lam milkiyat in Arabic. It means that, that day, the day of haqq, the day of truth, the day of judgment belongs to the Rahman. Alif lam Rahman means a specific Rahman, of course, being Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَكَانَ يَوْمًا عَلَى الْكَافِرِينَ عَسِيرًا. Oh. And that day for the kuffar is going to be a very, very hard and difficult day. We see these images out of Palestine, Al-Aqsa Mosque. We see these images out of the Kabul blast of, say, the Shuhada school. And we don't know how to fathom these things. People tune out, people become desensitized, people can't read an article on it. I can't fathom the idea that a mother or a father sent their girl to school that day and brought them back in a coffin. Being a father of young children, I can't even begin to imagine that. A few days away from Eid, we're making Eid preparations. Meanwhile, that house is upside down. And the only solace we have is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has promised that I will bless the mustaza'afin. وَنُرِيدُ أَن نَمُنَّ عَلَى الَّذِينَ اسْتُضْعِفُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ. Allah now has this irada, this will to do what? To bless, to elevate. Who? The ones who are considered to be mustaza'af in the land. That has to get us through. Otherwise, the type of news coming out from the Middle East right now and that part of the world is devastating. You don't want to do anything. But the solace is these type of verses, that on that day, justice will be laid down on them. That day, وَكَانَ يَوْمًا عَلَى الْكَافِرِينَ عَسِيرًا. It'll be very difficult. And then this is now where the zalim now talks. وَيَوْمَ يَعَضُّ الظَّالِمُ عَلَى يَدَيْهِ. The Quran says, on that day, the zalim, the oppressor, will bite to their hand. Meaning that, just like I made a mistake. Like, bite the hand, meaning that there's a lot of regrets. A lot of regret. And they actually captured the moment where the zalim and the oppressor says what? يَقُولُ يَا لَيْتَنِي اتَّخَذْتُ مَعَ رَسُولِي سَبِيلًا. If only I was with the path of the prophets. If only I walked with the prophet of God. If only I didn't ignore his sunnah and his words and his actions and his sirat. But verse number 28 is one that is very, to me, eye-opening and scary. The zalim goes one step further. and says, Ya waylata, laytani lam attakhiz fulanan khalila. If only I didn't take so and so as what? As my friend, as my khalil, meaning as part of my environment, as my trigger. If only this is a zalim on the brink of the hellfire, about to enter, the punishment of God, and the only thing he can attribute this certain situation to is this fulanan khalila, so and so friend. If I didn't do that, I wouldn't be in this predicament right now. The next verse goes on to say, لَقَدْ أَضَلَّنِي عَنَ الذِّكْرِ بَعْدَ إِذْ جَاءَنِي. This friend, this Khalil, led me astray. Didn't just lead me astray, بَعْدَ إِذْ جَاءَنِي, after I was already guided. My parents did an amazing job in creating the proper pious environment at home. The community did an amazing job. Al-Mahdi, the scholars, Asad Bhai, Maulana Bakri, Sunday school, the Quran, everything now. My own conscious, right? Everything. And then my spouse and then my kids, all of that. Such effort now to save one youth, one kid, one young person. Along comes a group of people, one or two, and they wipe it all away. لَقَدْ أَضَلَّنِي عَنِ الذِّكْرِ. They take me away from the dhikr, from the remembrance of God, or from the Quran itself. بَعْدَ إِذْ جَاءَنِي, after it was already brought to me. I was good. The Quran says, what is that dua from Surah Al Imran? We read it in the Qunut. رَبَّنَا لَا تُزِغْ قُلُوبَنَا بَعْدَ إِذْ هَدَيْتَنَا. That after you've already, don't allow this zigh, don't allow this gumrahi, this deviation to enter our heart. بَعْدَ إِذْ هَدَيْتَنَا, after you've already guided us. I mean, he attributes this idea of that, the fact that I was good, I was on the path, and then I started going this way. Why? Fulan and Khalila, because of my environment. The person around me that was triggering me for evil. Scary. Now, how can I judge other people? And by the way, this is not just for us to look at others. Am I like that? Do I pull people off the path? Am I the one who's triggering evil? Do I sit there and instigate the idea of backbiting in music when we get together? Do I sit there and, say, if a person wants to do good, don't worry about it, man. There's other people, this is, I want to go to a Mahdi, I want to help out, I want to do this on Eid, blah, blah, blah. Leave it, man. There's other people. Why are you always doing right? If you have someone like that who's promoting the idea of ithmi wal udwan, the Quran says, this aggressive behavior and sin, ask yourself, is it worth it? All that effort of my parents now. I know some people who are the cream of the cream. Great family, great kids. Talk to them by themselves, one-on-one. Oh my God, they are gems. But that same kid surrounded by a couple of people who are his boys and his friends, can't recognize the guy. And I know he's fighting himself. I know the battle he's in right now. Doesn't want to be isolated, ostracized. Doesn't want to be separated. They're my brothers, Asad Bhai. I can't leave them. At that moment, you have to stop and ask yourself, remind yourself of that zalim on the brink of the hellfire, saying, Lam attakhiz fulanan khalila. If only I didn't take that fulan as my khalil, as my friend. The Prophet says that your environment has such an impact on you, you adopt the deen of your environment. Here, deen does not mean that if you have Jewish friends, you become Jewish. Deen here means that you begin to live like them, dress like them, talk like them, eat like them, order the same meal as them, watch the same shows as them, everything. After a while, a group of guys look like they shop at the exact same store, a 2-for-1 deal, same pants, same style of hair, same length of hair, same piercings in one ear, same hoodie, same everything. And I mean, that's the power of influence. Don't be like me. For many, many years when I was younger, I didn't realize that, oh my God, there has to be a vetting process, a filter process. Let them vet me, let myself vet them as well. I'm giving them my extra time. I'm giving them all of this habit building and all of my values and ethics and morals. All of them is to them. That's why a lot of my parents out there are obsessed with the friends of their children, and they should be. They should be. How many phone calls I get? Maulana, wo itna kharab nahi hai bacha, iske dost jo hain wo sab kharab hai. He's not that bad, but his friends now bring out the worst in him. Yes, of course, parents are biased sometimes, but sometimes there's truth to that. Sometimes we're not strong enough to walk away from a toxic circle or toxic environment. But stop and ask yourself, am I being triggered for good or triggered for bad? Are these people elevating me? Are they challenging me to be good? Do I feel like I need to serve the cause of humanity when I'm around them? Or do I feel like, you know what, oh, thank God I'm not this bad? Do I leave a gathering with them thinking I am the best of the best? I'm the 15th Masoom Asad bhai. Is that how I feel? Or do I surround myself with people who challenge me to be better? And it's hard. It's tough to find people like that. There are some of you who carry the spiritual load in your environment. If I leave the group, it'll all go crushing and crumbling down. And I'm sorry, I've seen it way too many times that a person now jumps into the ocean, saving a person from drowning, and now they're both drowning, screaming for help, and there's no one there to help them. I've had situations where young guys come to me and say, there's a friend of mine who really needs help with God. He's on the brink of atheism. Okay, let's answer his questions. They would bring questions to me. I would answer them. They would go back and forth, back and forth. After a while, after 6-7 months of this process, the friend who was the connector between me and, that other individual now begins questioning God. Now they're both on the brink of atheism. And yes, sometimes it's important that, I'm sorry to say this and understand this, that it takes a little bit of selfishness to preserve and protect your faith, that your parents, that your ulama, that your center, that your community, that the Quran has worked so hard to uphold. It simply is not fair to yourself to be able now to be around those people who trigger evil inside of you. When Imam Ali talks about the idea of being around people who remind you of God, it means that he wants you to be around people that trigger you towards God, serving God, remembering God, being with God, bettering yourself for God. At the same time, you also have to be triggers for others. It's not just one-sided, right? So when you talk about a habit, the initial part of a habit is the cue. The cue is the trigger of the habit. But that cue has to be visible, has to be present, right? If it's not present, right? If it's once a week or once every month or this and that, I never go to the center, I never come to Thursday nights, I don't know, I never come here, don't listen to, how are you going to be triggered? Yes, the month of Ramadan is beautiful in the sense that we're almost every day we're triggered, so we're on a spiritual high. But as that month now comes to a close, how do we avoid not going back to pre-Ramadan? Is make our cues visible. If you really enjoyed spending time with the Quran every day, one page, one verse, one juz, couple of pages, then put the Quran on your side table, right beside your phone. When you wake up, you see that Quran. That's a trigger. It's a cue. If you are somebody, for example, who likes to pray salat on time, then set up your app or your phone such that the phone goes off with the adhan at namaz time. Invest in an adhan clock. If you want to be those who are constantly seeking knowledge, for example, then surround yourself with the right environment. My brothers and my sisters, if we want to be serious about the implementation of this gradual nature of the Deen, we have to create an environment. Now, mind you, you'll tell me, Asad bhai, a lot of my environment is not in my control. I get it, you're right. Where you live right now, your family, your siblings, let's say your in-laws, your cousins, right? Not in your control. And I'm not talking about that. I'm talking even within those who are your family, you have somewhat control about the impact they have on you. Nobody is suggesting qat'i raham here. Of course not. I would never suggest that. But boundaries might be important. right? We don't need to allow someone to come and infiltrate my deen and force me to become somebody I'm not. Sometimes we have such an apologetic nature that I know that I'm in the right here. Like I'm trying to be the right person, but because I'm not confident in that, I'll actually end up allowing them who have nothing to do with the deen to make me feel like I'm wrong, and I'll simply accept it. That narrative has to change. Okay? And we have to now be able to understand that. So in recap now, let's understand. Very simple. 4 ingredients to a habit. Okay? 4 ingredients to a habit. The cue, the craving, the response, the reward. The cue is the most important. That's where the brain now triggers itself. The cue triggers the habit. The cue has to be visible. Remember the example of the apples buried in the fruit tray. Your vitamins buried in the pantry, right? Your exercise machine, covered by some cloth. Okay? Make it visible. When it's visible, you get triggered easily. If we want to make Islam a habit of ours, present habit, we have to surround ourselves with triggers that are present inside of us. The people, for example, when the mosque opens up, visiting the mosque, the building is so important. My last point here I want to make in the Iltimas is my biggest fear is that this pandemic now, where I don't know about all of you, but I miss the center. I miss my Al Mahdi center. The 4 walls that I grew up in, those 4 walls are very, very pure to me. It's my home. And I fear that a lot of my youth today like the idea of the convenience of being at home. Asad bhai, we get the best of both worlds. I'm at home right now watching you in my pajamas. I don't need to commute. There's no parking issue, worry about, spacing and worry about, weather and this and that. I'm comfortable. I can turn off the speech, go upstairs. It's good. And we underestimate the power of the building. The building is a cue. It's a trigger. Driving to the center is essential. Don't underestimate the power of 4 walls. As much as all of us have tried to now bring those 4 walls to our home in the past year and a half, nothing can replace the house of God. So when that place opens up again, inshallah, it'll open up soon. We must rush to those. Why? Because they're cueing their triggers. We ask you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to accept our efforts, inshallah, to make us those who believe the deen to be a gradual path of salvation, inshallah. We'll see you tomorrow night. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على محمد الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله أشهد أن عليا ولي الله أشهد أن عليا حجة الله حي على السلاح حي على السلاح حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا
کسی بھی اہم امر کے پیش آنے، مصیبت کے نازل ہونے اور رنج و غم و اندوہ کے موقع پر حضرت امام زین العابدین علیہ السلام کی دعا۔
بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم۔
شروع نام سے اللہ کے جو بڑا مہربان نہایت رحم کرنے والا ہے۔
یا من تحل به عقد المکارم ویا من یفأ به حد الشدائد۔
اے وہ جس کے ذریعے ناگوار حالات کے عقدے کھل جاتے ہیں، اور اے وہ جس کے سبب سے سختیوں کی باڑھ کند ہو جاتی ہے،
ويا من يلتمس منه المخرج إلى روح الفرج ذلت لقدرتك الصعاب۔
اور اے وہ جس سے وسعت و اطمینان کی طرف جانے کا راستہ مانگا جاتا ہے، تیری قدرت کے سامنے سختیاں نرم ہو گئیں،
وتسببت بلطفك الأسباب وجرى بقدرتك القضاء۔
اور تیرے ہی لطف سے اسباب فراہم ہو گئے، اور تیری ہی قوت سے فیصلے نافذ ہو گئے۔
ومضت على إرادتك الأشياء فهي بمشيتك دون قولك مؤتمرا۔
اور تیرے ہی ارادے سے تمام چیزیں چل رہی ہیں کہ وہ تیری مشیت کی بلا کہے پابند ہیں،
وبإرادتك دون نهيك منزجرا۔ أنت المدعو للمهمات وأنت المفزع في الملمات۔
اور تیرے ارادے کے سامنے بغیر منع کیے ہوئے رکی ہوئی ہیں۔ تو ہی ہے جسے اہم امور میں پکارا جاتا ہے، اور تو ہی ہے جس سے مشکلات میں پناہ مانگی جاتی ہے۔
لا يندفع منها إلا ما دفعت ولا ينكشف منها إلا ما كشفت۔ کوئی
مصیبت تیرے بغیر رفع نہیں ہو سکتی ہے، اور کوئی مشکل تیرے بغیر حل نہیں ہو سکتی ہے۔
وقد نزل بي يا رب ما قد تكأدني ثقله وألم بي ما قد بهضني حمله۔
اس وقت میرے اوپر وہ مصیبت نازل ہو گئی ہے جس کے بوجھ نے مجھے تھکا دیا ہے، اور وہ آفت آ پڑی ہے جس کی سنگینی نے مجھے عاجز کر دیا ہے۔
وبقدرتك أوردته علي وبسلطانك وجهته إلي۔
تو نے ہی اسے اپنی قدرت سے وارد کیا ہے، اور تو نے ہی اپنی طاقت سے اس کا رخ میری طرف موڑ دیا ہے۔
فلا مصدر لما أوردت ولا صارف لما وجهت ولا فاتح لما أغلقت۔
اور اب وارد ہو جانے والے کو نکالنے والا، اور آنے والے کو موڑنے والا، اور بند دروازوں کا کھولنے والا۔
ولا مغلق لما فتحت ولا ميسر لما عسرت ولا ناصر لمن خذلت۔
اور کھلے راستوں کا بند کرنے والا، اور مشکلات کا آسان کرنے والا، اور بے سہارا کی امداد کرنے والا تیرے علاوہ کوئی نہیں ہے۔
فصل على محمد وآله وافتح لي يا رب باب الفرج بطولك۔
لہذا محمد و آل محمد پر رحمت نازل فرما، اور میرے لیے اپنے کرم سے سکون کا دروازہ کھول دے۔
واكسر عني سلطان الهم بحولك وأنلني حسن النظر فيما شكوت۔
اور میری خاطر اپنی قوت سے رنج و غم کا زور توڑ دے. میں نے جس بات کی فریاد کی ہے اس کے لیے اپنی بہترین نظر عنایت فرما دے.
وأذقني حلاوة الصنع فيما سألت وهب لي من لدنك رحمة وفرجا هنيئا.
اور جس چیز کا سوال کیا ہے اس میں بہترین سلوک فرما اور مجھے اپنی طرف سے رحمت اور خوشگوار سکون عطا فرما.
واجعل لي من عندك مخرجا وحيا ولا تشغلني بالاهتمام عن تعاهد فروضك.
اور مشکلات سے نکلنے کا فوری راستہ بتا دے. مجھے مشکلات کی فکر میں مبتلا ہو کر واجبات کے خیال
واستعمال سنتي فقد ضقت لما نزل بي يا رب ذرعا.
اور مستحبات کے استعمال سے غافل نہ ہونے دینا کہ میں اس نازل ہونے والی مصیبت کی بنا پر تنگ دل ہو گیا ہوں.
وامتلأت بحمل ما حدث علي هما وأنت القادر على كشف ما منيت به.
اور اس حادثے کا بوجھ اٹھانے کی بنا پر رنج و غم سے بھر گیا ہوں اور تو اس بلا کے ٹالنے پر قادر ہے جس میں میں مبتلا ہو گیا ہوں.
ودفع ما وقعت فيه فافعل بي ذلك وإن لم أستوجبه منك يا ذا العرش العظيم.
اور اس مصیبت کو دفع کر سکتا ہے جس میں واقع ہو گیا ہوں تو اب یہ کرم فرما دے اگرچہ میں اس کا حقدار نہیں ہوں. اے عرش عظیم کے مالک.
Assalamu alaikum Mu'minin wa Mu'minat. Our Ramazan programs are going on and now we are reaching the end of Ramadan. Today was the 27th of Ramadan and we have only a few days left right now. Our programs are starting at 6:45 p.m. with the Tilawat Quran Pak and which is followed by the Hadith Kisa and Dua Iftitah. The English speeches are being addressed by Maulana Asad Jafri and these speeches are actually happening before Namaz Maghribain. After the azan of Namaz Maghribain, we are giving you a gap of 45 minutes for you to pray the namaz, to do your iftar. And after 45 minutes of the time, we start our Urdu program, which is addressed by Maulana Sayyid Zaki Bakri. And we are also getting to the end of the completion of Quran during the month of Ramadan. And I have been announcing and we have been announcing from here that whoever wants to add the names of their marhumeen for the sawab of the completion of the Quran during the month of holy month of Ramadan, you can take the participate in it. The hadiah is $100. So please make sure that you are adding up the names. We only got around 14 or 15 names, I believe, so far. Not more than that. We were expecting a lot more. So please take part. It's a good opportunity to give the sawab to your marhumeen for the Quran. And it is going online every day. So please participate in that. And also participate in the Ramadan donations. We need your help in the Ramadan fund. And our expenses have not yet been covered. We are still running in the deficit. Please make sure that you are participating in the Ramadan program. And also, we request you to subscribe our Al-Mahdi community channel, a YouTube channel. The way you can do is when you type the Al Mahdi Islamic Community Center on YouTube, you might get multiple links with the same name. So please look for this photograph over there. This is the photo you are seeing, which represents our site. So make sure that you go there, you subscribe, and you also press the bell icon, so that whenever we start our live broadcast, your devices will get automatic notifications. And with this, I would request you to recite Surah Fatiha for these marhumin and also the marhumin of all the viewers who are watching us right now. Ghulam Asghar Shah, marhumin of Hussain Nazar Ali, Panju, Mir Sajjad Ali Razvi, Mir Akbar Ali Razvi, Turabun-Nisa Begum, Sayyid Ali Azhar, Shaukat Ara Begum, Baqir Ali Mirza, Mir Jafar Ali Khan, marhumin of Razvi family, Shuhada Islam, and all the marhumin. Please recite a Surah Fatiha. And now we will be showing you a small clip from our new building project. After that, inshallah, Maulana Sayyid Zaki Bakri is going to address all of you in Urdu.
Assalamu alaikum. The Al Mahdi Islamic Community Center building project team is excited to announce that after the lockdown, this new center will be easily accessible from all areas of the GTA. This amazing 55,000 square foot community center consists of large prayer halls, a massive gymnasium, a recreation center for youth and seniors, a modern nursery for kids, classrooms, conference rooms, mortuary, and much more. This new state-of-the-art facility will be the hub of activities for youth, adults, and seniors. Opportunities and benefits for generations to come, insha'Allah. Phase 1, the complete covered structure of the center, including the main services required for partial occupancy, will have an estimated cost of $11.4 million. Financially, we are pleased to announce that we have $2.6 million in the bank. We have $700,000 in pledges that we will receive upon the beginning of construction. We have $2 million in a no-interest loan from a donor, and the bank will provide a construction loan for $3 million. We will be in a deficit of $3.1 million. So in the name of Almighty, we invite you to become a part of this amazing Sawab-e-Jariyah. Please donate to help with the construction of Al Mahdi Islamic Community Center. On this blessed night, please sponsor a musalla for $1,500 or a brick for $500 in honor of your marhumin. Let's work together to make this center a reality. Donate at cig.ca/donate.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. وفوض أمري إلى الله إن الله بصير بالعباد ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله الذي ذكره شرف للذاكرين وشكره فوز للشاكرين وطاعته نجاة للمطيعين والصلاة والسلام على أكرم الأنبياء والمرسلين شفيع المذنبين خاتم النبيين رحمة للعالمين أبي القاسم محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين لا سيما بقية الله في الأراضين صاحب العصر والزمان خليفة الرحمن إمام الإنس والجان الذي بيمنه رزق الورى وبه طبتت الأرض والسماء اللهم عجل فرجه الشريف. आप देख रहे हैं सामने जुल्म اور ظلم کی بھی انتہا اور دنیا خاموش ہے. افغانستان میں ہماری بیٹیاں ذبح ہوئی اور غزہ میں بمباری چلی، خون بہہ رہا ہے، ہر طرف سے مسلمان کٹ رہا ہے. اور اس وقت انسان مایوس ہونے کے بجائے بہترین موقع ہے کہ مولا کو پکاریں، وہی ہمارے مدد کرنے والا ہے، کرنے والے ہیں. اور انشاءاللہ قیام کے ساتھ، تیاری کے ساتھ، فکری اور جسمانی. بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم. اللہم کل ولیک الحجت ابن الحسن صلواتک علیہ وعلی آبائہ فی هذه الساعة وفی کل ساعة